regular meeting of the Civil Service Commission for the 7th of August, 2024 will now come to order. Before we continue this meeting, I want to make an announcement. After the last month's meeting, Commissioner Peter B. Smith announced his resignation from the Civil Service Commission to avoid any appearance of conflict of interest after his daughter, Caroline Smith, was appointed to be the interim Deputy Chief Administrative Officer and Director for the Health and Human Services Agency. We thank Pete for his 6 years of service on the commission. And I want to add personally that I have really come to appreciate Pete's voice on this commission. It's a great loss for us. I feel that he's taught me a lot in terms of how I approach my work here. So I want to personally also thank Commissioner Smith, or outgoing Commissioner Smith, for his 6 years of service. Welcome in-person and online attendees. If you want to provide oral comments on any of the agenda items, please be sure to follow the instructions on the first page of the agenda. If you're attending this meeting in person and you would like to pull an agenda item for discussion, when asked, please stand and identify yourself by name or number, and we will return to your item after the consent agenda is approved. Attendees joining to this meeting using the Zoom application will alert Commission staff of your intention to speak about an agenda item by using the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. Please include your name, telephone number, or other identifying feature you selected when logging in, and the agenda item number you want to speak about. Attendees who dialed into today's meeting, please press *9 on your telephone to raise your hand and alert Commission staff of your intention to speak about an agenda item. When called upon for you to speak, please unmute yourself using *6 on your telephone. We will now commence with the order of business. Will the Commission Secretary please take the roll?
Commissioner Coleman, Commissioner Fletcher,
Present.
Commissioner Johnson,
Present.
Commissioner Rodriguez Kennedy.
Present. Our second item is the approval of minutes. Item B, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of the 3rd of July, 2024? We do not have a motion.
Oh, sorry. I'll move to approve.
All right, there's a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? And there's only 3 of us today, so we all have to be on our toes. Will the Commission Secretary please record Commissioner votes?
Commissioner Fletcher,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez Kennedy.
Aye. And that motion carries with 3 in favor, with the Commissioners Commissioner Coleman absent and a vacancy. Item C on our agenda is non-agenda public comment. Members of the public may address any matter relating to the Civil Service Commission other than items that are on today's agenda. The total amount of time allotted for public comment will be limited to not more than 2 minutes unless the Commission President agrees to extend the time. Do any of the attendees want to make a public comment about any matter relating to the Civil Service Commission, but not on today's agenda? If so, and you have joined the meeting using Zoom, please use the Q&A function on the bottom portion of the screen to inform Commission staff. If you've dialed into today's meeting, you may press *9 on your telephone to raise your hand to alert Commission staff. When you are called upon or to speak, please unmute yourself using *6 on your telephone. We will need to wait a minute in the event somebody wants to make a comment and is attempting to alert staff now. Will the executive officer please start a timer?
Yes. Commissioners, 1 minute has passed and we've received no request to make a public comment.
Thank you. Hearing none, We will now move on to item D, which is agenda item discussion. Do any of the attendees want to pull an item for discussion? If you're attending this meeting in person and would like to pull an agenda item for discussion, please stand and identify yourself by name or number, and we will return to your item after the consent agenda is approved. If you are speaking for an appellant or complainant, please use their assigned number as opposed to their name. If you joined the meeting using Zoom, please use the Q&A function on the bottom portion of the screen to inform commission staff of the agenda item you wish to speak about. If you dialed into today's meeting, you may press *9 on your telephone to, quote, raise your hand to alert commission staff. When you are called upon to speak, please unmute yourself using *6 on your telephone. We will need to wait a minute in the event that someone wants to pull an agenda item and is attempting to alert staff now. Will the executive officer please start a timer?
Yes. Commissioner Rodriguez Kennedy, I think we should maybe announce that item number 10 on the agenda is being taken off of the agenda, so that will not be considered at this time.
Outstanding. Item 10 is off the agenda and will not be considered at this time.
Commissioners, 1 minute has passed. We have received no request to pull an agenda item for discussion.
All right. Thank you. We will now move to item E, which is formation of the consent agenda. Will the commission secretary announce the items forming the consent agenda?
Commissioner, agenda items 1, 8, and 9 are automatically pulled for discussion. Therefore, agenda items 2 through 7 and 11 through 12 are available for approval on consent agenda.
May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve this, Commissioner Johnson.
Is there a second?
Commissioner Fletcher seconds.
The commission secretary, please record the commissioner votes.
Commissioner Fletcher,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez Kennedy,
Aye. That motion carries with 3 commissioners in the affirmative, Commissioner Coleman absent, and a vacancy. Now we will move on to item F, which is the discussion items. Wait, am I right? Yeah, okay. Agenda item 1 is pulled for discussion, which is the election of a president of the Civil Service Commission for the remainder of the 2024 year. So just so we're aware, what happens here is normal. So the rules require that there's an elected president and a vice president for the year. Now, in most organizations that make sense and republics and whatnot, normally the vice president would take over after the president. But if I did that, it would lead to a shortened term because we have specific language saying that you cannot be reelected, the president. So as a result of that, the president has established a vacancy. So we must elect a president for the remainder of the term. And then then next year that president could not be reelected. We'd have to move on. Now, I will point out that this is kind of a stupid rule. In most normal organizations, like the vice president assumes the presidency. It is the way it's done. It is not in the interest of the commission to have a vice president that can't assume the role because it diminishes the ability that they can be president. I hate the rule, and I think we should look at changing it. So I hope that we can clarify. There's also some weird language about whether or not someone is being replaced. You cannot be elected to replace yourself, either president or vice president. There's an argument that like you're not replacing yourself. For example, if you're the president of the United States, you're the 44th president. If you're reelected, you are still the 44th president. It only happens to be replacing when the vacancy is created and you're replacing. Anyway, it's the whole thing. Regardless, I don't like the rule. I hope we can change it. But in the meantime, we have the rules that we have. So at this point, is there someone who wants to do this? For 5 months?
I'll move to appoint Commissioner Fletcher to serve the remainder of 2024 as president of the commission.
All right. There's been a nomination of Commissioner Fletcher. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, I will, you don't need a second for nomination. And seeing no other nominations, will the Commission Secretary please record Commissioner votes?
Commissioner Fletcher,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez Kennedy.
Aye. With 3 votes in the affirmative, and Commissioner Coleman absent, Commissioner Fletcher is returned to the office of President. I will now pass the gavel, which I do not have, over to the President, and will continue serving as Vice President. And that's quite convenient because we have the next item. So go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's an honor to be. This is all very spare at the moment, so we'll just dive right in. Next is agenda item number 8, which is Commissioner Rodriguez Kennedy's report on a discrimination hearing. Do any of the attendees want to speak about this agenda item? If so, and you join the meeting using Zoom, please use the Q&A function on the bottom portion of the screen to alert Commission staff. If you dialed into today's meeting, you may press *9 to raise your hand to alert Commission staff. We will need to wait a minute in the event somebody wants to speak about this agenda item and is attempting to alert staff now. Will the executive officer please start a timer?
Yes.
We're gonna pass back and forth again? Is that what's happening for your report?
Yeah, 'cause I-
Okay.
To further confuse everyone.
Commissioners, 1 minute has passed. We've received no requests to speak to this agenda item.
Thank you. Hearing none, Commissioner Rodriguez Kennedy, please proceed with your report.
Right. A hearing on the discrimination complaint and selection process appeal of employee 2022-157 will be referred to as employee regarding their non-selection for the classification of criminalist 1 by the Sheriff's Department, which will be referred to as department, was conducted pursuant to section 618 and 10.6 of the Civil Service Rules on the 16th, 17th, and 23rd of May in the year 2024. The Civil Service Commission, CSC or Commission, appointed me, Commissioner Rodriguez Kennedy, to hear the appeal and submit findings, conclusions, and recommendations to the Civil Service Commission. Background. The employee filed their complaint with the Commission on the 15th of June, 2022, alleging discrimination based on age, marital status, protective activity, retaliation, and other non-job related factors by the Sheriff's Department relating to his non-selection for the classification of criminalist 1. In accordance with the established rules and procedures of the Commission, the matter was concurrently referred to the Office of Ethics and Compliance, OEC, for investigation. OEC's investigation found that there was probable cause that non-job related discrimination occurred in this matter. OEC did not find that discrimination occurred on the basis of age, marital status, or protective activity retaliation. Pursuant to Civil Service Rule, Section 6.1.3 provides in relevant part, if OEC finds probable cause, the Commission shall conduct a hearing in accordance with the following process. This hearing focused specifically on the OEC finding of probable cause that non-job related discrimination occurred. The employee filed a timely petition to appeal selection process regarding their non-selection for the criminalist 1 classification. In it, employee alleges the department's decision was biased, retaliatory, and based on non-job related factors. The petition to appeal selection process was held in abeyance pending the outcome of the discrimination investigation. The Commission granted employees' petition to appeal selection process, Rule 10, and ordered a hearing be held in conjunction with the Rule 6 discrimination hearing. Findings of fact. The employee was a lab assistant for the San Diego County Sheriff's Department Crime Lab from April of 2016 until December of 2022. During their tenure, the employee sought promotion to a criminalist 1 position in the crime lab on more than one recruitment, including an open recruitment during the latter half of 2021, for which they applied and was interviewed on the 30th of November 2021, the quote first interview, as one of 19 qualified applicants. The first interview was conducted by a panel of 4 individuals: a supervising criminalist 1, a supervising criminalist 2, an assistant director, and the departmental human resources officer. As a result of the first interview, the employee received an average rating of 45. The employee scores, when compared to the entire list of qualified applicants, ultimately ranked 3rd, and therefore should have been sufficient to qualify for the employee for a second interview with a panel of raters. The second interview, to be called the second interview. The second interview were conducted between the 19th December 2021 and 5 January 2022. In preparing her evaluation of the applicants who should be moved on to the second interview, the DHRO erred in failing to include the employee and 2 other qualified applicants with acceptable scores on a list submitted to the crime lab director for her consideration for a second interview. The error on the part of the DHRO was not discovered until after the employee complained that they were not selected or not included in the second interview process, believing that their exclusion from the list was intentional. Once discovered, the department conducted second interviews of the employees and the 2 other qualified but excluded applicants for one more criminalist 1 vacancy. These interviews were conducted approximately 4 months after the original round of second interviews. Following their second interview, the employee was not offered the promotion to criminalist 1. The crime lab director participated in the second interviews for the 3 omitted candidates. The employee was rated the lowest of the 3 and was not offered the promotion to criminalist 1. As part of the first interview, the raters present a pre-developed list of 6 questions with total points assigned for the question based on components to evaluate. Each objective question provides the raters with suggested but general responses that, if answered sufficiently, would result in a total score for that question. At the end of the first interview, the raters then discuss their scores for each of the for each of the 6 questions for the purposes of determining whether a rater might have missed a response, with the objective being to maximize a candidate's score. After completing the second scored portion of the questions, the raters then discuss other subjective factors, such as communication and presentation skills, body language, and other factors that might affect the impression the candidate has when testifying in court. Because the employee is an internal candidate, having worked for 5.5 years as a lab assistant in the crime lab, and because the assistant lab director was the employee's supervisor for the past 13 months, the other panelists asked her whether the employee's answers were consistent with their past performance in the crime lab. The assistant director asked the DHRO if responding to the question was appropriate, and when the DHRO answered in the affirmative, the assistant lab director provided some background information that was not part of the first interview that they had just rated. The information the assistant lab director provided ranged from the possibility that she told them that the employee's reputation and work history did not match with their answers, to a belief that the employee's performance seemed to improve at interview times but falls after the interviews, and finally that the employee had been involved in 2 corrective actions regarding contamination of specimens with their DNA and conversations raised in the crime lab that supplies were not being restocked and available. None of this information would have been revealed in the employee's responses to the 6 standardized questions. Conclusions. The handling of the 2021 Criminalist 1 open recruitment, in which the employee participated, was inadvertently mishandled by the DHRO when the names of the employee and 2 other applicants from their first interviews were not included in the list of those advancing to a second interview. There was no proof of discrimination against any of the 3 candidates under Rule 6. The error by the DHRO simply failed to include them in the list to pass to a second interview. The error by the DHRO resulted in a correction to allow the 3 omitted applicants, including the employee, to compete for the final opening. At the time of the first round of second interviews, the one that the employee was inappropriately excluded from, each of the 11 qualified candidates had better than a 50% chance of being offered one of the 6 openings. The employee, in their delayed second interview had a 1 in 3 chance, 33.3%, of being offered a job for the last opening. In providing their assessments of the candidates, the scoring sheets have a total of 110 points available to a maximum of 10 points being subjective. The candidate in the first interview had scores in the section ranging from 3 to 10. The employee received scores of 6 from each of the raters in this subjective analysis. It is more likely than not that the comments made by the assistant lab director to the first interview panel might have influenced them to note the N on their rating sheets. Not one of the raters explained why the quote N, the letter N, was on the rating sheets based on the numerical rating they give the employee. Even the bonus rating was not indicative of recommending that they not move on to the second interview. Others with lower ratings were given a Y or M, Y to indicate yes and M to indicate maybe, on their sheets, and their bonus points were comparable to the score assigned to the employee. Although the department points to 2 corrective actions as the reason for not promoting the employee, which occurred sometime between the 2nd October 2019 through the 1st of October 2020, the testimony received consistently supports that corrective actions are not performance issues and therefore not discipline. As such, there is no evidence that such incidents are, quote, job related. With regard to the contamination issue, the employee demonstrated, the employee demonstrated that once he was informed that their DNA was found to contaminate samples on 3 occasions, likely due to their status as a shredder, and perhaps reusing lab coats or bringing in personal cell phones. And once corrective action and procedures were imposed and followed by them and others, the situation was resolved and no additional and similar contamination issues had been discovered. As for the PPE issues, the record reflects that the employee worked cooperatively and professionally to try and find a solution to the need for a face covering, ultimately agreeing that for them to work effectively as a lab assistant, they would wear 2 face coverings. All reports from management are that that the employee acted appropriately through both processes for solutions. As for corrective actions included involving contamination issues, the employee's employee performance appraisal report for the period involved rated the employee's performance as, quote, meets expectations in compliance with the rules and regulations, in cooperation, adaptability, and performance with a minimum supervision. Their overall rating for the same period was likewise that they meet expectations. Finally, the evidence that the employee on a single occasion had failed to supply the laboratory with equipment and supplies supports the finding that this situation was adequately addressed by the employee long before their interview. Thus, the department's response to the employee's claim of a Rule 6 and Rule 10 violations relate nearly entirely to these corrective actions. The testimony clearly supports that the employee's assertion that the corrective actions are not reasons for failing to promote them. They are not reasons for discipline. On the contrary, the evidence supports a finding that they serve to reflect the employee's cooperation and willingness to follow the directives. As such, it is agreed that the department's efforts to justify the employee's failure to be promoted based on these incidents are pretextual. Therefore, it can only be concluded that the comments of the assistant lab director at the conclusion of the employee's first interview were unnecessary and intended to tarnish what has otherwise been described as leading to a, quote, decent score. Although the DHRO allowed the assistant lab director to provide her opinion on the employee's work history or ethics, or whether they align with the employee's responses, this inserted factors better left unstated. Such a conclusion supports the finding that the employee's denial of promotion was influenced by non-job related factors, which is a violation of the Civil Service Rules 6 discrimination complaints. It is further concluded that the comments made by the assistant lab director following the first interview more likely than not influenced the final decision of the lab director in a negative manner. Unfortunately, the error on the part of the DHRO triggered the employee's fate when the employee wasn't advanced to the second interview, as they should have been. It is unknown how the employee would have performed in a second interview when competing with others, had they been included. Perhaps the employee's confidence of progressing would have prevailed over the employee's bitterness in the mistake and their need to advocate their complaint. The math, however, indicates that the odds were in the employee's favor, that they had a greater chance to be selected for the position of criminalist 1 in the first round than in the second round. Remedy. A possible remedy for Rule 6 and Rule 9 violation would be to place the aggrieved employee into the position that they were denied, as well as an award of back pay. The department believes that the remedy was mitigated by conducting the second interview, where the employee was not rated the best candidate and was not promoted, and argued that no back pay is justified. In this situation, the employee no longer works with in the crime lab and successfully promoted to toxicologist 1 with the county medical examiner's office. Therefore, placing the employee in the position of criminalist 1 is not an option. In fact, the employee did not request this remedy. However, it is clear that the employee suffered a loss of income that they would have earned as a criminalist 1 in the department, at least until their transfer to the medical examiner's office, a period of approximately 6 months. An award of back pay for that period is just and appropriate. Therefore, my recommendations based on the findings and conclusions set forth above, I hereby recommend the following decision. 1, that the employee's complaint of a Rule 6 discrimination be sustained in that the employee's non-selection for the classification of criminalist 1 by the Sheriff's Department was made on the basis of non-job related factors. 2, that the Civil Service Commission receive and file the employee's complaint and OEC's report determining that there was not probable cause that the employee was discriminated against on the basis of age, marital status, or protected activity, retaliation, pursuant to the process laid out in Rule 6, Section 6.13. 3, that the employee selection process appeal be granted. 4, the employee be awarded the difference in pay between laboratory assistant and criminalist 1 for the period of the 17th of June 2022 to 16th of December 2022, plus interest. And 5, that the proposed decision shall become effective upon the date of approval by the Civil Service Commission, and I so move.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have a second?
I'll second. This is Commissioner Johnson.
Is there any discussion?
I just did a lot of discussing.
Will the Commission Secretary please record Commissioner votes?
Commissioner Fletcher,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez Kennedy.
Aye.
Those commissioners present, that is unanimous. I am going to pass the gavel to Commissioner Rodriguez Kennedy because my hearing is next.
This is why that rule is stupid, just a reminder. Anyways, next is agenda item 9, which is Commissioner Fletcher's report on a discrimination investigation. Do any of the attendees want to speak about this agenda item? If so, and you join the meeting using Zoom, please use the Q&A function on the bottom portion of the screen to alert Commission staff. If you dialed into today's meeting, you may press *9 to raise your hand to alert Commission staff. We will need to wait a minute in the event somebody wants to speak to about this agenda item and is attempting to alert Commission staff now. Will the executive officer please start a timer?
Yes.
One minute is a long time.
Commissioners, 1 minute has received no request to speak.
Commission President Fletcher, please proceed with your report.
Thank you, Commissioner. The Civil Service Commission appointed me, Commissioner Brian J. Fletcher, as its member to be the investigating officer in the matter of the complaint submitted by employee 2023-001, Human Service Specialists, which alleged discrimination based on gender by the Health and Human Services Agency. In accordance with the established rules and procedures of the Commission, the matter was concurrently referred to the Office of Ethics and Compliance, or OEC, for investigation. The OEC concluded the discrimination investigation and has reported its findings to the Commission. This investigating officer has received and reviewed OEC's report and has taken into consideration all documentation submitted in this matter. This investigating officer concurs with OEC's report and has concluded that the evidence does not support a finding of probable cause that a violation of discrimination laws occurred. I therefore recommended that 1, employee 2023-001's Rule 6 discrimination complaint be denied, and 2, the Commission approve and file this report with a finding of no probable cause to believe that the complainant has been unlawfully discriminated against, and I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Commissioner Johnson.
Will the Commission Secretary please announce or please record Commissioner votes?
Commissioner Fletcher,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez Kennedy.
Aye. The motion carries with 3 affirmative votes and Commissioner Coleman absent. I will now pass this gavel back to Commission President Fletcher.
Thank you. That concludes today's meeting. Thank you for attending. The next commission meeting is scheduled for September 4th, 2024. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, commissioners.